Book 101 review. Book 101 is all about the books that are read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He is the author of several books and, of course, stay the course. No other than Mr. Dom Brightmon. Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Dom. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Sure thing, Daniel. Thanks so much for having me on your show, my man. Appreciate a fellow D who's a fellow podcast host having
Yes.
me on. Name's Dom Brightmon, host of Going North, and a positive thought catalyst, the one and only positive thought catalyst who helps folks to think just a little brighter during their daily lives. So that way they can continue to live, thrive, and advance further in life.
Mr. Dom Brightmon, thank you so much for sharing your talents to the world. So, what is the central premise of this book? It's a self help book, right? If I'm
Ah,
not
yes.
mistaken.
Yep, you are not mistaken, my friend. You are so right. That's right.
Good job. So, stay the course. What is the premise?
Yes, the premise of the book is that this is basically the sequel to my first ever book, Going North Tips and Techniques to Advance Yourself, which is probably a year from being 10 years old at the time of this recording, funny enough. And after publishing the first book, went through some grief and with the dying of my father, because the first book, there was some ground that was being gained, getting on TV, podcast, radio, TV interviews, and sadly lost him about a good it was sadly 5 months after the book was published, and I realized that I was going through some things, and I lacked some self-awareness at the time, and I realized that self-awareness is the major key to elite performance, and thus, one of the biggest things to help you out in your lifetime is writing a book that's solving your problems, and I did just that. So this book, the premise of the book is that self-awareness is the major key to elite performance, and then it breaks down that giant, wonderful cloud of self-awareness into multiple reads
Yes.
known as 7 keys.
Ah, interesting indeed, Mr. Dom. So, what are the biggest challenges elite performers face in maintaining long term success?
I'd have to say dealing with circumstances that just happen randomly. Sometimes it's just being blindsided because the thing is, it's like the recovery process. Like with my dad in his passing, I thought I prepared for
Yes.
that moment because he was dealing with Alzheimer's. I had anticipatory grief. Come to find out, I prepared, but you can never really truly prepare for truly losing someone, especially someone precious to you like a father. And really just being able to bounce back and have resilience from that. And really just being able to realize, like, hey, sometimes some elite performers lack self awareness in the beginning of their stages of attaining their success. And after a while, depending on who you are, especially if you have a positive mindset, it borderline becomes rose colored glasses a bit. Another book I recommend folks to read, Leading on Empty by Wayne Corderio, is that he basically had a collapse in the middle of his pulpit out on the stage of his church because he had such a great positive mental attitude and he was always using that just about for everything and kind of really brushing some underlying signs aside, and it all just really crashed down on him all because that he had these rose colored glasses, metaphorically speaking. And this book is about helping you to not get into that situation to where it's like, all right, so if you're blindsided, you know how to be able to not only bounce back, but also keep your ground and be able to adjust and advance forward.
Interesting, Mr. Dom. And what is the significance of consistency in achieving high performance?
Powerful question. Consistency is so powerful and needed if you want to have high performance and if you want to continue to grow. Because the thing is, consistency is how you get known. If you consistently put out good to great work, you're going to get known. If you consistently put out bad content and bad work, you're also going to get known, but not the way you would like. so,
For
so it's
sure.
important.
Bad or good, the same. You will be known.
Yeah, then you'll be like, man, maybe we need to be unknown if it's bad work.
For sure. So, what role does discipline play in staying the course towards success?
Discipline plays a huge role because the thing is, habits, we have them, and they sometimes change subconsciously over the years as things go along. Like 5 years ago, we had this big, huge pandemic with COVID, and a lot of folks were going in a certain direction. They had their set ways of doing things, me included, and it got shell shocked and rocked. It was a metaphorical earthquake where things just basically shifted, like the tectonics plate in your routine have shifted. And the thing is that with that, with me in particular, one thing that really changed was not being able to go out to coffee shops and read and get some work done because it's like, hey, I'm stuck at home. I love being at home. I have great things at home, plenty of books to read at home, technology, but I'm usually more productive in certain places outside of home because I'm more focused on the outside. And basically having to readjust and try to, even though I wasn't as quick when it came to getting things done, I basically had to readjust and reframe my situation and realize, like, hey, this is where I am. I still had that wonderful habit of reading books to really expand my mind and keep myself focused on the good and thinking more on the positive side of things and making sure that the dark side of positivity, like the story I mentioned earlier, doesn't really happen. And I basically had to basically reframe and keep that habit. And discipline is what helps you keep those habits because it's like, all right, cool. No matter what happens, there are some things that are just going to be part of you, like brushing your teeth. That's always going to be a part of you. Like,
Yes,
like anything could change. Like, you're definitely going to remember to do that. So, yeah, discipline is definitely important. It's like the glue to your habits of what you do for having success.
definitely, people. Discipline is number one to achieve success in life. So, how do top performers handle setbacks and failures?
Ah, how do wonderful top performers handle setbacks and failures? Reframing is one of the major things, man. Reframing is one of the major things because there's that old saying when you get knocked down, get back up. Well, truth be told, don't get back up instantly. You don't have to
Yes.
bounce back instantly. Sometimes you have to really stay down for a moment, unless you're in a boxing ring or you're in the UFC in the octagon. Like if you're down there, yeah, get up or or fight back. But outside of that, like we're speaking in metaphor, like hey, sometimes you have to pause for a bit, take stock of what's going on, and be like, okay, so that tactic didn't work. The first two tactics didn't work. I had a great plan that actually was a bad plan. How can I attack my advancement strategy a lot better? Like with the first book, I gave myself a deadline of a year to get it done. Book number two, dealing with some grief, and said in 2 years the book will be published. It took almost 3 years for book number two to come out because I had a lot more information, a lot more life under my belt, and that grief. And really, I had to adjust my strategy. And one of the major things was to really do a mindset shift and focus on what my main story is as opposed to focusing on other people. Because the first book, I read great books from other people and I've applied things to my life. After book number one was done and I was working on book number two, I started my show and started talking with all these other people. And with some of the stories I was hearing and sharing with other people, it was just like, man, like, am I really the guy to really talk about elite performance when some of the folks I've had on my podcast, I'm like, man, they're a better example than me. And I had to really get through that self-doubt of, hey, even though I've promoted and endorse some of these folks I've had on my podcast, like, hey, there's still some people that they can't reach that I can reach. Some may see the photo of the guest and be like, I think I'll see what's going to happen on the next episode next week or in 2 or 3 days from now. As opposed to me, where it's like, okay, that's Dom. I like Dom. I trust Dom. Let me go on ahead and see what he
Interesting.
has to say. So getting over that self doubt is definitely part of it.
Yes. And let it go, people. That down, let it go. So, how important is adaptability in sustaining success over time?
Ah, yes, adaptability is very important. That's actually part of the book and really part of life because the thing is, you're going to have to adapt. It's either adapt or die, adapt or perish. If you don't adapt, then basically you're going to end up as a dinosaur. It might not even take an ice age or a giant meteor for you to be extinct. And the thing is, when it comes to adaptability, one of the major things is that embracing the beauty of AI, like with things that I do in my day to day life, like when it comes to really polishing up certain work. Heck, even for audio editing, I use AI and my post production for my podcast, as well as drilling out some certain quotes, some blog posts, and using that down the road for maybe some future content. Like being able to adapt to what's going on, because the thing is, we're in a rapid growth phase. And the thing about growth is that growth is happiness. There's also going to be some pain too. Like it's like a teenager going through puberty when they're going through the growing pains. They have to get a lot of naps because one day they may be 4'5", wake up in 6 months and they're freaking 5'7". It's like that's a lot of freaking pain when it comes to that growing, and they got to recover. And it's you too with your own life. Whoever's listening right now, there may be some pains you have to go through during that growth process. You have to adapt to the pain, and then once you adapt to that pain, you'll have to adapt to the new success that'll come with the growth that you'll go through. So adaptability is definitely important, and we all definitely have to go through it one way or another.
Certainly, we are in a fast-paced world right now, people. Even climate change, we need to adapt. So,
Mhm.
how can someone develop the habits necessary for long-term success?
Good question. Name of the game, start at least with one good habit a day. So
Mm,
basically, if you want to have better sleeping habits, sometimes easier said than done. It involves making sure that you analyze your life and take stock of what's going on. Are you drinking coffee all day long, even past 3 to 5 p.m.? Like maybe stop drinking coffee around 12 p.m. That's one of the major things I had to do in my own personal life is that, like, hey, if I'm going to have caffeine, I got to make sure it's not a lot of it before the evening time shows up or I'll be up all night. Like when
yes.
it comes to weight gain, like have I been drinking less water? Is that why I've been sluggish? Especially during the winter time where your body needs more, stay hydrated even more sometimes in the summer just to stay warm. Like, what are your water drinking habits? Heck, even with reflection, like with reflection habits, especially in the start of my personal and professional development, I would basically use index cards and write down questions. The front of the question I would ask, what good did I do today? And what good will I do today? And then just write the answers on the back and then reflect on them. And that happened over time, brick by brick and stone by stone. So just like whatever construction project you have, it like the old saying, Rome wasn't built in a day. Well, your home wasn't built in a day. The iPhone wasn't built in a day. Your Galaxy phone, which is better than the iPhone, I'm pretty sure I might get email for that one. Like that wasn't built in a day. This wonderful books 101 podcast wasn't built in a day, and it's still growing. Like my man Daniel's still getting started. So it's really all about taking it one day, one habit at a time, and really building it up brick by brick and not trying to do it all at once. Because even though some days you may feel like everything's coming at you at once, at the end of the day, it's not really true. There are some things where it's like, yeah, there are signs ahead of time that certain things are going to happen.
Certainly. So, what are the core principles behind the seven secret keys to success?
Ah, yeah, long title. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Long time. That, that's awesome.
But yeah, one of the major keys, definitely one I want to highlight, would be time awareness. And that's basically one of the wonderful rays that stems from self awareness. And the thing about time awareness is the fact that, yeah, folks want to preach time management. They're aware of time management as a whole idea and something that they really want to improve on. For a lot of folks, that's probably one of the biggest topics that comes up in self help. Is like, hey, how do I manage my time? When truth be told is about being aware of your time and aware of where your attention goes. Another book I recommend for other folks to read, in addition to this one, is Attention Management by Mara Neville Thomas. And that wonderful book of hers, another small book, like 100 pages or so, like it talks about the idea that I highly agree with, that it's really not managing your time, it's managing your attention. Like if you wake up in the morning and you start scrolling through social media or your email or the news or whatever, and the next thing you know, you're about to be late for work because 30 minutes disappeared out of nowhere, then your attention was lost, thus your time was lost. So it's really about managing your attention and making sure you stay focused. So time awareness is a major thing. You have to be aware of your time and where it goes. So that way you can appropriately manage where your attention goes during the time that you expend on earth. And that's one of the major keys that a lot of elite performers have and that they apply to their lives daily. It's like, hey, being aware of their time. How much is being used? Where is it going? How much time it usually takes to do a project, and sometimes planning for extra time in case something happens. Because really, there's a lot of times where you can underestimate the amount of time it takes to get certain projects done. Like I've done that in the past, and on occasion, I still do it to this day because my life today is different from 10 years ago because I have more responsibilities now and less time available in terms of like, hey, like I was just a college graduate at the time with a lot of time in his hands, opposed to podcast host, author, and full-time employee day job having employee while running a business where it's like I got all these responsibilities. Like it's a different ball game. So when the ball game gets different, you still have the same amount of time, but make sure that you're aware of where it goes and how you can use it appropriately.
Certainly. So, Mr. Dom, what would be your advice for those people out there who want to write their own self-help book?
Ah, yes, definitely ink it when you think it. Tried and true advice. Ink it when you think it. And and I literally do mean ink it when you think it too, because I keep a pen and notepad on hand, like in my car and usually around me, because I'm always writing thoughts when they come to me. Heck, even Stay the Course, the last chapter from that book, it came from after a really intense 2 hours of working out in some in a summer weather doing CrossFit and kickboxing. Like I look like I came out of a baptism pool the way I was sweating that day. But as soon as I got in my car and sat down, I had all these thoughts, all them good feeling endorphins just charged in my brain. And I had to just get it all down on paper. And that eventually became the last chapter for my book, Stay the Course. So you basically have to ink it when you think it. And with that story of the whole sweating out the toxins for the happy feelings and writing things down, is that you have to also move your body, because that's one of the major things that can hold people back. Is that with creative people, especially when it comes to writing, you have to really keep your body well and at least fit. Like it doesn't even have to be like fully fit, at least enough to where you can still move around and get around without assistance. Like you really have to move your body because we only have this one body to live, and you have to really take care of it. So take care of your wonderful temple. And I'd say the third thing would be to write out an outline and then fill in your thoughts after inking them down. So that way you can match them to certain points in an outline, because that's how basically all of my books have been written, is through outlines and just basically filling them in and being open to really changing it down the road. Because sometimes you may have an outline for the book ahead of time, but you think about it, and as you write it along, write more books and put more content in it, things could change. And you're like, man, this part should go here and things like that. So, yeah. So, ink it when you think it, move your body, and create an outline.
Certainly. So, what will be your short-term and long-term goals in writing?
Short term, I got two books that are in the works. So I'm going to be producing the 10th anniversary edition of Going North, Tips and Techniques to Advance Yourself, and that'll be in October 2026, which I can't believe it's about to be 10 years since I wrote Going North, that launched me into this wonderful era that I'm in now. And also working on a book to help aspiring podcasters to start their podcast, because even though a lot of folks start their shows, there are still a small amount of shows that are actually still active. So there's still a lot more podcasting pie out there for people to really take advantage of. So we got that in the works. So that's basically the short term. That's about a year ish, and the podcasting book should be out before Going North. Long term, I definitely want to have at least 10 plus books to my name. So we'll see how that goes, and we'll see how long I'm allowed to live on Earth and see what comes out my brain. So,
Good luck to your goals, Mr. Dom, and looking forward for more empowering books like this. So, what role does mentorship or coaching play in sustaining peak performance?
yes, having a mentor is great. Having a coach is great, sometimes even greater, because the thing is, a mentor, there's someone who's doing the thing that you want to do. They are the blueprint. They have the advice, the wisdom. They have the wisdom so that way they can give you the shortcut so that way you don't have to take the long road. A coach, they don't necessarily have to be in your same exact field, but they can hold you accountable and get you to think and also keep you in a straight metaphorical line when you get off a track so that way you can stay focused on your goals. I've had plenty of mentors in my life, still do. I've had a coach a time or two in my life. And the thing is, they've really helped me to not only stay focused on the goal, but also continue to advance and also watch out for certain pitfalls. Because the thing is, if you want to go far and fast, make sure you have a mentor because a mentor is a book on steroids, I like to call, because a mentor is someone you can talk to. A mentor is doing what you want to do, they're far ahead and they can give you advice as opposed to a book. Yes, it can also give you advice. Books are many mentors in a way, but the thing is, a mentor, depending on your field, they can see you in real time as opposed to a book where it's a one-on-one conversation. You're just looking at the pages and taking in the content. Opposed to mentor, you can actually talk back. You could actually ask questions and get more deeper insights. So, have a mentor, have a coach. Definitely have both. If you have one or the other, that's a okay too. But definitely aim for both if you want to be a top performer in your field.
Yes, look for a mentor, people. And to sum up or to wrap up our discussion for today, Mr. Dom, how can individuals apply the lesson from stay the course to their own lives?
Yes. Come again. You want folks to know if they can where they can reach me at, right? Or something else.
Yes. So, how can individuals apply to this, to their,
Yes. Yes,
to,
good question. Good. Yeah, how folks can apply it? I'd have to say journal's your best bet. Definitely take stock of what you do. Like when you do things, like basically document them. Definitely document them. It can be a Google Doc even if you want, but writing is definitely preferred because it sticks to your brain a lot more and a lot longer. Like there are times where I write things down and I really get things done as opposed to put it on a computer somewhere. And if I don't have an alarm, then it kind of falls by the wayside. So make sure you write things down so that way it can stick to you like Luke. Because sometimes with technology, yeah, it's convenient, it's useful. A phone is most likely always going to be on you in today's society, but there's a lot of other things on the phone that can distract you. So I'm a little
Certainly.
old fashioned. So yeah, stick to it by really documenting your progress and then looking back over your process to see how far you've come along.
Yes, stay the course, people, until you succeed. Try and try until you succeed. So, Mr. Dom Brightmon, thank you so much for sharing your talents to the world. And can you please invite our listeners to support all your books?
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Daniel, for having me on your wonderful show, my man. I appreciate you. If you want to get in contact with me, yours truly, Dom, just head over to dombrightman.com. This is dombrightman.com. I'm on most social medias at Dom Brightman, like Twitter, X, Facebook, and all that smooth jazz at Dom Brightman. So check it out like a library book, my friends, all on dombrightman.com.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Dom Brightman because if you support him, more empowering books to come. So, Mr. Dom, thank you for your time.
Woohoo! Thank you, Daniel.
More to come, people. See you soon.